You're gearing up to employ people for the very first time. You'll be justifiably nervous because it's something you've never done before. How do you know what to ask and what to do? I have your answers.
Just lead.
You're in a leadership position and you finally get the chance to employ someone new. It's an exciting time. But all the leadership training that you may have had very rarely covers something like employing a new person. You know that you'll need to interview them, potentially see them face to face, but what do you ask? Your company might have a set form of questions that they want you to ask, but is this really all there is to it? How do you analyse the data? And then how do you choose the employee from that? Do you just go with gut feel? Employing new people starts with the resume, and you're going to have plenty of resumes come across your desk, but don't rush this process. You need to get this right because it has direct impacts on the structure and culture of your team. But don't dawdle also. This process should take priority over almost anything else that's on your plate. Here's some things I look out for when I'm reviewing resumes. The first thing is spelling and grammar. The only reason why you would give some leeway here is if the language you're hiring in, for me English, is perhaps their second language. Outside of this, there should be no reason for there to be spelling and grammar errors throughout the resume, particularly ongoing and frequent ones. It shows a lack of care and dedication to the application process, and if they can't show care and dedication in putting together their resume, how much care and dedication are they going to put into performing their role for you? I feel like this is applicable at any level of any organisation for any role. It is the first step. If they can't get this right, what else will they get wrong? Are their qualifications what they need to be? If so, yes, cool, move on, push them forward. If not, remove that resume from the pile. Next, I look at the length of time spent in each of their prior roles. Now, it depends on the sort of person you're looking for the role. If you want a lot of varied experience, someone that jumps around a lot might be who you're looking for. But generally for me, if I'm looking at a resume and someone has jumped around a lot and has spent less than a year in each of their roles, that says to me that loyalty is not high on their priorities. More often than not, for me, that resume gets removed from the list. What are their extracurriculars? Have they got a penchant for group activities and teamwork? Sociability is such an important foundation to building a strong team, and extracurriculars can be a great indicator of how they perform in these scenarios. Now you're on to the interview, and you break the interview into two components. One, the questions that you ask, and two, the body language that they purvey. When it comes to asking questions, I've built a reputation for myself over time as someone that doesn't make it easy for interviewees. I provide very little prompting when I ask questions, and when I do provide prompts, it's not a good sign for you. It means that I've already moved on from you and I just need to get this interview done a whole lot quicker so that I can move on to the next candidate. When you're asking questions of your interviewee, make sure you give them the time and room to answer. I don't necessarily need the answers to come quick and fast. Give them time to think about their answers and let them answer as they need to. Sometimes this provides really good examples and really rich information as to who they are. And if they take time and provide good results, it means they're a considered person. They think about what they do, and that could be a good quality that you need with your team. Don't stick to the questions that are on the page. Probe a little bit deeper if that's what you need to do. If someone says something a little troubling, make sure you go into it and find the root cause as to what has gone on, because it might eliminate them immediately, or it might be a forgivable thing. If someone says something that's really incredible as well, probe a little bit further, understand their impact in that situation, because again, it could put them right to the top of that list. Ask them about their background. Even if they've been working with you in a different role, still ask them. They should be able to link their background to the role they're applying for very easily and why they would be perfect for the role. If they can't do that, do you think they're even ready for the opportunity you're about to provide them? Ask them appropriately technical questions. Some advice I got from a colleague when I was sharing the interview process with them when we were interviewing for a new leadership role was to ask them a disciplinary leadership question. Where would they go if they had an issue? And the key that this person wanted to get out of the interviewees was that they wouldn't come straight to their one-up. They wouldn't come straight to their leader with the problem. I've got this problem person, I need you to deal with it. The idea being that they needed to deal with it themselves. If they are new to the role and they answer in a rather vague way, as long as the gist is correct, you're happy with that. But if it's a technical detail they should know in absolute specifics, if they don't answer in absolute specifics, then there's a real problem and you should be moving on from that candidate. You should also then ask behavioural questions, and this is something I've taken from my last workplace, and I find it super beneficial. In the end, you need these people to be able to interact as a team, and the behavioural component of who they are is so important to getting that decision right. And they should be able to pull specific examples from their work past. No leeway. Absolute specific examples. They should have done the work prior to the interview to ensure they're ready with examples as they need to come up. I'm going to take a minute right here in the middle of this video just to let you know that I am a young and growing channel, which means subscriptions are incredibly important to me. To help grow this channel and help me get my voice out there to more people, please hit that subscribe button if you've been enjoying what's going on right here. Enough of that, let's get back to the video. Now let's have a look at interview body language, and this applies as much for the interviewee as it does for the interviewer. How have they carried themselves when they enter the room? Is it a phone interview? What's their phone etiquette like? All of these things play into how you perceive someone and whether they get the job. We did group interviews once in my last role, and one of the candidates rolled in a suit, the only one to do so. All the other candidates kind of sniggered and laughed and had their jokes, but I clocked immediately that this person was interested in getting the job and would do anything to get the role. What is their personal control like? Do they have nervous tics that are distracting? You as the interviewer, do you have nervous tics that are distracting because you need to be on top of those? Do they look you in the eye when they're answering the questions? Or do they fall to pieces when they can't get the answer quick enough when you ask the question? If you don't already have a relationship with this person, how are they approaching you when they enter the room? Are they shy and reserved, or are they upfront and handshaking and introducing themselves to each member of the interview panel? These are all basic cues that you as the interviewing leader need to keep an eye out for as you progress through the interview, because they'll give you a deeper understanding of the person beyond what they're saying. I've got two unusual examples of interviews I conducted for the same role. In normal circumstances, these examples would be a red flag and make you think twice about employing this person. Ultimately, both these people got the role because the first person I employed for it was headhunted and taken to a different role. This first unusual case, I was interviewing someone that was actually at the same level of the organisation as me. Now, they were looking to make a change and were happy to step back in the organisational structure in order to get a role elsewhere. I was starting to ask the questions and get a sense of who this person was. What they didn't realise, or maybe they did and they didn't care, was that the camera was on when they were doing the interview. We thought we would let this slide and just sort of see who they were. They literally had their chair kicked back and their feet up on the desk. And this would be a sign for concern if the answers that they were giving were poor. But the answers this candidate was giving were absolutely top notch. And you could see with his body language on the camera that he didn't really have too much care or worry because he had the answers ready to go. He wasn't referring to any papers or anything like that. He just knew because he's had so many examples that were relevant to the questions we were asking. Absolute top-notch candidate. So we weren't worried about his laissez-faire style at the desk, because we knew he was competent and that's what made him relaxed. That first candidate got taken into a different role. So I had to interview again, and this is when the second unusual case came up. I was interviewing someone for the supervisor role and they came in with an iPad. I started to ask behavioural questions about experiences they have had, and throughout the interview they referred to notes that they had on their iPad. I had to take this away and talk to some people and see what other people's thoughts and ideas were around the idea of bringing notes into an interview. And I really came back thinking that it's not too bad an idea. It's not like we're sitting an exam and you need to remember all this information and regurgitate it. Some people aren't good at that style of information sharing. Having the iPad and the notes in the room, to me, was a good sign because it showed that he was prepared for the interview. It showed that he cared about the role, that he really wanted it, and he wasn't just going to wing it in the room. In my eyes, this behaviour was a benefit to him, not a problem. I may have sounded quite negative throughout this video, but remember, it is far easier to employ someone than it is to fire someone. Be excited about it. It's an opportunity to bring fresh talent into the team. And should you be looking for diverse and inclusive candidates, click here to pull back the curtain on diversity.